Ladies and gentlemen, we will commence our speaker series today with an Inouye chant.
O naunai ka halame ka lehua, e halelehua no ia na ka noi. O ka uno ia e ano ia ne e ali ane ho io taiti mai. Aiti mai noi, aiti puno me te aloha. Aloha e, aloha e, aloha e.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the official party. The director of the Daniel K. Inouye Asia Pacific Center for Security Studies, Rear Admiral retired Peter Gumataotao, and the 17th President of the Republic of the Philippines, His Excellency Ferdinand R. Marcos, Jr. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
Aloha and e komo mai. Welcome to the 6th iteration of the Daniel K. Inouye Speaker Series. My name is Peter Gumataotao. I am the director of the Daniel K. Inouye Asia Pacific Center for Security Studies. And we are so honored here at the center to co-sponsor this event along with our fellow cohorts, the DKI Institute, as well as the DKI APCSS Foundation. I would like to start by recognizing some of our distinguished attendees. First, we're very proud to have the President of the Republic of the Philippines, a treaty ally of the United States, His Excellency Ferdinand R. Marcos, Jr., as our distinguished speaker. President Marcos' participation in the DKI Speaker Series is fitting, given the Philippines' significant relationship with the United States as a mutual defense treaty ally. His perspective as a leader is instrumental in fostering security, stability, and prosperity in the region. We are very excited that the people of Hawaii and others will benefit from his insights today. Also with His Excellency, our senior officials from the Philippines, to include the Armed Forces of the Philippines Chief of Staff, General Browner. I call him out because he is a DKI APCSS alumni. So to all of the officials from the Philippines, welcome e komo mai. I would also like to recognize other distinguished visitors in the audience. Admiral Aquilino and Mrs. Aquilino, Admiral Paparo and Mrs. Paparo, Congressman Case, Congresswoman Takuda, Senator De La Cruz, Senator Aquino, the Consul General from the Philippines, Emilio Fernandez, along with all the Consul Generals from countries in the Indo-Pacific as well as around the world that are here today. I also want to give a shout out to Lieutenant General retired Fig Leaf, who was the former director here at APCSS, also to Major General retired Susie Veras Lum, the president of the East-West Center, ambassadors, flag officers, general officers, and other distinguished guests, and to the ladies and gentlemen that are here at the center, a warm aloha to all of you. Thank you for coming, as well as those that are up on Zoom and in YouTube from across the Indo-Pacific region, including many of our distinguished alumni and local Hawaii community leaders. So for everyone, the speaker series started in 2018 as a collaborative effort by 3 institutions to honor the legacy of the late Senator Daniel K. Inouye by sharing with the local community and others around the region his vision to foster a security environment that's characterized by mutual understanding, cooperation, and peace. In short, promoting a free and prosperous environment for future generations to enjoy. I would now like to take this opportunity to invite my two co-hosts, Ms. Jennifer Sabas and Mr. Jerry Sumida, to provide a few opening remarks.
Aloha and good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of the Daniel K. Inouye Institute, thank you all so much for coming. It is an honor to serve as a co-host for the lecture series. And Mr. President, welcome. I'm sure you know that your dad and Senator Inouye had an amazing friendship and a long-standing relationship that was mutually beneficial to our two countries. So it is only most fitting that you are in this place that he had intended for all of our international partners to gather and to share their insights. So welcome, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Mr. President, distinguished members of this gathering, my name is Jerry Sumida, and I'm the president of the Foundation for the Asia-Pacific Center for Security Studies. The foundation was established almost during the early days of this center in order to provide two things. One is support, financial and otherwise, for the center and its programs, and secondly, to help broaden the reach of the center into the broader communities in Hawaii. Hawaii, as you know, is in the center of this particular region, the Pacific region, and has always striven to play a major role in this particular part of the globe, with its importance increasing on a daily basis. And as you know, Hawaii and the Philippines have a very, very strong historical tradition, historical and cultural tradition. So we are very pleased to join with the center and with our colleagues at Daniel K. Inouye Institute to sponsor this program and also welcome you and hope you have a very pleasant journey here, and we look forward to your remarks. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Jerry. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, it is now my great honor to introduce our distinguished speaker for this afternoon, the President of the Republic of the Philippines, His Excellency Ferdinand R. Marcos, Jr.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction. The Director of the DKI APCSS, Director Peter Gumataotao, the DKI Institute Director, Jennifer Sabas, the APCSS Foundation President, Gerald Sumida, Her Excellency Mary Kay Carlson, the U.S. Ambassador to the Philippines, the U.S. Indo-PACOM Commander, Admiral John Aquilino, members of the Philippine delegation, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. And I think the traditional greeting is aloha.
Aloha.
I am very pleased to be able to speak with you today here, especially since it is a particular pleasure that I am here at the Daniel Inouye Center. As has been mentioned, Senator Inouye was a great friend of my father and, equally importantly, a great friend of the Philippines. As a matter of fact, one of his last acts in Congress that involved the Philippines was that he was able to finally arrange for the back pay of the so-called Bolo men that fought together with the Americans during the Second World War. And I wrote him a letter and he responded to me, and we were both very, very pleased and just a little bit sorry that my father was not here, was not around to note what had been achieved and what he had been working for since the end of the last war. So this event caps the 6-day, 3-city working visit to the United States, which I have just undertaken. It is my third visit since I assumed the presidency in 2022. This Honolulu leg is, of course, a bit of a special one for many reasons. First of all, Hawaii is home to a significant number of Filipinos and Filipino Americans, many of whom, the original immigrant workers, came from my home province or my home region of Ilocos Norte, which is the northern part of the Philippines. The Ilocos-Hawaii connection began here with our so-called sakadas, or workers, arriving in 1906 as plantation workers. And then, as events conspired, Filipinos were also fighting shoulder to shoulder with American soldiers during the war. Today, Honolulu hosts the headquarters of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command. The long-standing partnership between the armed forces of the Philippines and the Indo-PACOM have resulted in enhanced coordination, interoperability, and individual and joint defense capabilities. This is to ensure that we both uphold our commitment to our treaty alliance, especially in the face of growing and evolving regional and global challenges to our security. It's no coincidence that I spent this morning, before coming here, with Admiral John Aquilino. We had a very productive and useful exchange on regional developments and the critical role of the Philippine-U.S. alliance to promote peace and to safeguard the international law-based order, to ensure resilient, sustainable, and inclusive growth for our economies and our communities. It is the third visit that I have made to the United States since becoming president. And in this visit, I have had the privilege to speak about my vision for the Philippines and the world through the platforms provided by the Asia Society in New York, the CSIS in Washington, and now here in the APCSS here in the Aloha State. My message has always been firm, simple, and clear. The Philippines will continue to be an engaged and responsible neighbor and partner, always finding ways to collaborate with the end goal of mutually beneficial outcomes, namely peace, stability, and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region. It is through working together, guided by the rules-based international order, that we can ensure an environment that will allow our countries and our peoples to prosper. That has been the raison d'etre for my foreign policy of peace. There are many challenges, however, in the roads towards that peaceful and prosperous future that we envision. Signs of another nuclear and space arms race are hovering over us. We are caught between the dual challenge of opportunity presented by advanced and emerging technologies, chief of which, of course, is AI. Smaller countries like the Philippines are grappling with the need to enhance our security capabilities alongside allies and partners and amidst larger regional players. So allow me this afternoon to speak more specifically about the two challenges that I believe are the most crucial to our common aspirations now. Number one is securing the peace in the West Philippine Sea. The Indo-Pacific region, particularly the West Philippine Sea, is in the middle of a global geopolitical transformation and has become an arena of normative contestation. Tensions in the West Philippine Sea are growing, with persistent unlawful threats and challenges against Philippine sovereign rights and jurisdiction over our exclusive economic zone and the continental shelf. Actions that violate obligations under international law, particularly the 1982 UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, and the 2002 Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea. Our regular routine and resupply missions at Ayungin Shoal are subjective to coercive tactics and dangerous maneuvers of Coast Guard and maritime militia vessels in the West Philippine Sea, putting the lives of our people at risk and challenging the rule of law in that has defined our baselines, our economic zone, and the maritime territory of the Philippines. There is rampant, illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing and militarization of reclaimed features in the South China Sea. There have been recent missions to Escoda and Romulo Reef, which revealed a direct correlation between the presence of maritime militia vessels and reef damage in those features. If only for that, the impact on biodiversity and the environment I'm afraid, are assessed as possibly already irreversible. This imperils livelihoods, this imperils the future generations of Filipinos. So I have said it before, and I will say it again. The Philippines will not give a single square inch of our territory to any foreign power. The law is clear, as defined by the UNCLOS, and the final and binding 2016 award on the South China Sea arbitration. Supported by the rules-based international order and our growing partnerships, both time-tested and new ones, we will insist on the preservation of the sovereignty and integrity of the country, while working closely with international partners in the bilateral, regional, and multilateral settings in developing rules and processes to address these challenges. We appreciate certainly the concrete manifestations of the U.S. and the growing number of our other partners in support for the Philippine position. The strong, factual messaging in support of our lawful exercise of our rights under international law, and which will call out recent incidents in our EEZ. It demonstrates the strength of our alliance and partnership and challenges attempts to perpetuate false narratives. That has become a very important front in all of these events that are happening in and around the Philippines. But unfortunately, rhetoric is not enough. We need to upgrade our defense and civilian law enforcement capabilities, not only to defend ourselves, but also to enable us to become a reliable partner in promoting and guaranteeing regional security. That will require greater substantial infusions into funding streams needed for our armed forces and Coast Guard modernization plans, including lines of effort to enhance cyber cooperation. I am optimistic from our recent engagement with our American counterparts, including U.S. legislatures and certainly in the executive department, to elevate our partnership and dedicate resources to match our commitments. Over the past week, our teams have been working on a bilateral planning and tracking mechanism that is expected to accelerate concrete and substantial capability development investments and activities in order to meet our shared defense and security objectives over the next 5 years. Our defense secretaries also just met in Jakarta on the sidelines of the ASEAN Defense Ministers Meeting Plus to discuss efforts to further strengthen our alliance. The second item that I feel is very important is the securing strategic sectors and critical infrastructure, and especially as we have all begun to recognize the importance of activities in cyberspace. At the same time, ladies and gentlemen, we also need to address broader notions of security, and that now will include economic security. We welcome public-private partnerships, particularly engagements between and outside our military and defense establishments. For example, the Aguila Subic Shipyard project supports Philippine efforts to position Subic Bay as a logistics hub and complements Hader readiness and initiatives. USAID development projects can also be harnessed to help boost our economic resilience. We hope to expand these partnerships in critical and strategic sectors and infrastructure. Just the other day, I witnessed on the sidelines of the APEC summit in San Francisco the signing of the Philippines-United States Agreement for Cooperation Concerning Peaceful Uses of Nuclear Energy, or what is more commonly known as the 123 Agreement. This opens the doors for U.S. companies to invest and to participate in nuclear power projects in the Philippines. This is expected to boost national efforts towards securing an affordable, reliable, and sustainable energy supply. our cooperation on cyber security is also a priority, as it impacts both national and economic security. Critical infrastructure, whether with respect to ports, to energy, telecommunications, they will require cybersecurity measures to be in place for the country to be resilient. These systems form the backbone of our military infrastructure, our hospital systems, our agriculture, manufacturing, services sectors. In September, we launched the 2023 to 2032 National Innovation Agenda and Strategy document. This is the Philippine government's 10-year innovation plan, establishing the country's goals and strategies to improve innovation, governance, and establish a dynamic innovation ecosystem in critical areas. Learning and education, for example, health, food, agribusiness, finance, manufacturing and trade, transportation and logistics, public administration, security and defense, energy, blue economy, and water supply. We anticipate many areas where the U.S. as a leader in innovation and emerging technology can also be our major partner. Our teams are looking to convene the inaugural interagency PHUS Cyber Dialogue sometime early next year to follow through on our commitment to enhance cooperation in the face of new and emerging threats, including completing a full assessment of the cyber threat landscape and the establishment of next steps to counter cyber threats. So friends, ladies and gentlemen, these challenges will continue to evolve. But I am confident that together we will be able to manage them. Our alliance is stronger than ever because it has been founded on our shared values, our mutual respect and trust of each other as equal sovereign partners, and the unbreakable bonds between our two peoples. Our recent engagements across branches and levels of government confirm that we are committed to this relationship for the long term. At the same time, our growing network of partners, including Australia, Japan, the Republic of Korea, the UK, European Union, will serve as force multipliers, which will help us bring our country closer to the vision of a peaceful, secure, and prosperous nation within a secure and prosperous region. So I hope to continue this dialogue with all of you as we make our way on this principled path that we have chosen. We today are defining the future for ourselves in our lifetime, but also for the generations to come. Thank you very much. Mahalo nui loa.
Sure. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for those incredible insights and perspectives and your vision for the future and how we can collaborate to make it a more secure and stable and prosperous region. Before I start with some questions, and I'll tell you how the questions got synthesized, but I couldn't help yesterday, your team came in here and started to put all these little artifacts. I know some of the folks in the back can't see it, but Your Excellency, can you explain any of these artifacts that are up here?
These are jeepneys.
We know about jeepneys.
If you don't know what a jeepney is, these are the jeeps that were left behind by the Americans after the war, which were converted into transport systems. And they comprise a very large percentage of our transportation system. And the reason that we are highlighting them is because we are in the midst of an effort to go fully electric when it comes to public transport. This is our continuing effort as a response, of course, to climate change, to improve the mix of energy consumption and supply from the traditional fossil fuels to more renewables. We have been reasonably successful. We are presently approaching 30% in terms of the energy mix, 30% renewable in terms of the energy mix of the country's energy supply. And that is why we put them out here to remind all that despite their very traditional look, they are being heavily modernized.
Yes, sir. And I just came from the Philippines, and I have to tell you this. Yeah, these are definitely still there. And people are using it. So, well, thank you for that, really. And for the audience, what we have done for purposes of time is we have many folks that we've invited to present us with a question, and our team synthesized it. And just with the constraint of the time that we have, I understand it, sir. But I'll try to ask as much as I can before we have to terminate.
I shall try to be brief.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Your Excellency, your comment about the critical challenges that we face out there was pretty vivid in terms of what we all face. Yeah. But you also talked about opportunities and how you seek to resolve disagreements through peaceful means. So I was wondering if you can elaborate on this relationship. I understand you met with the Admiral Aquilino and his team today and during your time here. Perhaps share with the audience some of those initiatives that you're looking at with the United States regarding promoting better cooperation and collaboration in the future.
Well, the basic idea, of course, of all of this is that the United States is our, I would say, our oldest and most traditional partner that has been in various forms ongoing for over 100 years. And I think it serves us well to remember that the United States is the Philippines' only treaty partner. And that is why that with the increasing heightening tension in the West Philippine Sea, as we have named it, because it is generally known as the South China Sea, the increasing tensions in the South China Sea require that we partner with our allies and our friends around the world so as to be able to come to some kind of resolution and to maintain the peace. And as I mentioned in my remarks, really what the foreign policy of the Philippines is really rather simple. And it really comes down to two things. Number one, peace, and number two, the national interest. And in that sense, we no longer subscribe to the old thinking, wherein it is a bipolar world, and each of the countries will choose whether to be with the Soviet Union or to be with the United States. I do not think it is not, in my view, this is no longer applicable, no longer relevant to the way the state of affairs as they have evolved geopolitically. So it is important that we continue to strengthen that partnership. And the main partner of the Philippines is, of course, the United States. But starting with that, we also feel that it is the way forward is to strengthen our partnerships in all, with all our neighbors and with all friendly nations who share our ideals, who share our aspirations, who share our values and the respect for the international rule of law. And this has been something that we have tried to develop, and we have, I believe, have had some measure of success, and we will continue to do this. But again, the bedrock of any of these partnerships is the partnership and the treaty arrangement that we have, the mutual defense treaty that we have with the United States. And in that regard, we are continuing to increase our capabilities so as to be able to answer the challenges that we are facing now it's becoming more and more often. Every so often, whenever there is a confrontation between outside forces and Philippine forces. This is, unfortunately, as I have said to some of our partners, unfortunately, I cannot report that the situation is improving. The situation has become more dire than it was before. The nearest reefs that the PLA have started to show interest in terms of slowly using these atolls, these shoals, as a basis for building. Basis really is what they are approaching, have come closer and closer to the Philippine coastline. And the nearest one is now around 60 nautical miles from the nearest Philippine coast. And this is an evolving situation. If you will remember, the Spratly Islands was used by the by the U.S. Navy as a bombing range for a very long time. And so there was no question that this was part of the Philippines. Now they have fallen into the hands of a foreign power. And many of these features that are in the West Philippine Sea are slowly being turned into bases, really. Admiral Aquilino just showed me a relief sort of map, not map, but model of one of them. And it is remarkable how the extensive construction and the level of commitment that has been made to those military bases. And so it's not, it is something that in our view, of course, the United States, once again, is the bedrock, is the foundation for all that. But the more allies we find to speak up whenever such incursions occur, such incidents or events occur, then I think the stronger that voice will be. And so we have encouraged that to a great deal. The United States, of course, has been there. And in every instance where we have had trouble, the U.S. has always been behind us in terms of support, not only in terms of rhetoric, but also in terms of concrete support. But that also applies now to Australia, to South Korea, to Japan. We are now in the midst of negotiating our own code of conduct, for example, with Vietnam, because we are still waiting for the code of conduct between China and ASEAN. And the progress has been rather slow, unfortunately. And so we've taken the initiative to approach those other countries around ASEAN with whom we have existing territorial conflicts, Vietnam being one of them, Malaysia being another, and to make our own code of conduct, and hopefully this will grow further and extend into the other ASEAN countries. And at the very least, we have that basis between not only in the multilateral sphere, as in ASEAN, APEC, all of these other organizations, but also bilaterally with the different countries that around ASEAN who we have conflicts with, but whom I think we can find a way to maintain the status quo. And certainly the most primordial concern is to maintain the peace.
Thank you, Mr. President. When I listened to you and how you repeated actually some of the key tenets of what you were saying in your speech, I remember just the recent visit I had in Manila and speaking to not just General Browner, but your Secretary of Defense, Teodoro, and others. That is a consistent message of your firm resolve to work things peacefully, but to work with the United States and other like-minded partners around the region, particularly in Southeast Asia. I would also offer you, when you talked about the rules-based order, international order, and how you've got the favorable findings from the Tribunal Court of Arbitration in 2016, that all underscores what we are all trying to do, which is to maintain that peace and prosperity, but following the rules-based international order. Now, you mentioned something in your speech, and you covered it quickly, but I think every country is wrestling with it in terms of technology, emerging technology. How do you view that strategically? How can you leverage technology in terms of building and enhancing relationship and cooperation with other countries?
Well, I think it applies to essentially every sector. One of the great events in the recent past has been COVID. And COVID showed us a new way of doing everything. It showed us a new way of living, a new way of working, a new way of interacting with one another, a new way of living. And that has been brought about, those solutions have been brought about by technology. So if we go to another sector, which applies to every other single sector that we ever discuss in government, and that's climate change. Climate change was brought about by burgeoning technologies, which we did not realize were going to poison the planet to this extent over 200 years or so. But then we also look to technology to bring us the solutions for this existential challenge that we are all facing. So let's bring it back now to the question of security. Again, technology, I think, will provide many of the solutions. But of course, at the very beginning of all that is the resolve of each country in partnership with other countries to continue to maintain the rule of law and to do that in the interest of peace. And that is what we have been trying to promote. And I do believe, I am very encouraged by the discussions that we have had, not only with the US, but with other countries, that this, it is well understood that this is in fact the way forward, that we must collaborate to bring those technologies to the fore so that our people can reap the advantages of that. Now, the latest technology that everyone, of course, is looking to, as it is exceedingly powerful, is AI. And we have just received the news that there has been within the AI community this conflict as to whether or how far to push it without regulation. I know President Biden has just signed a document that says that this must be regulated, monitored, and regulated properly. Because we have seen the rather more sinister uses of artificial technology. On the other hand, we must always remember it is a double-edged sword, and it can swing in a way that will help us. And I think if we are trying to transform our economy in the Philippines, as we all are, as a matter of fact, after COVID, in the face of Ukraine, and now in the Middle East, we have tried to bring these new technologies into the fore. But once again, we have to be more cognizant of what are the risks involved. And the reason that it is so difficult is because these things never existed before in human history. And we are making this up as we go along, as it were. And there are very many unintended consequences to something quite so powerful. Once again, just look at the Industrial Revolution. There was no way that when the Victorians started the Industrial Revolution, that they would say 200 years down the road, we are going to have to think about global warming. We're going to have to think about melting the ice in the poles. So we have to be extremely careful. And also because technology has evolved so rapidly. And that is another reason that we have to pay a good deal of attention to it. Because we will easily be left behind. If we rest on our laurels and say we've got this figured out, that is the moment that we get into trouble. And so we continue to look to the United States and to technology leaders like the United States to provide the guidance and to the lessons, rather, that you have learned being at the forefront, and both the good lessons and the lessons that were not quite as successful, and hopefully apply that in the Philippines. And again, with the discussions that we have had with the US and with other countries as well, I feel confident that so long as we are aware that there is a possible danger and we think things through properly, then we will be able to take full advantage of AI and of other new technologies. On the other hand, if we sit back and just let it take over our lives, that is exactly what it will do. It will take over our lives.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm pressed for time, but I need to ask this because I hear I heard you say ASEAN. I know the Philippines is a founding member of ASEAN, and I think in 2026 you will assume the position of chair. We all know in the audience regarding what happened in Myanmar and how the juntas had really, their actions in Myanmar really undermined the centrality and just the basic understanding between the ASEAN countries. It may be too far ahead to ask in terms of in your role as the ASEAN chair, but what were you thinking as the leader of the Philippines to be looking to help ASEAN grow into an adaptive role, particularly in terms of what has happened in the region that kind of destabilized it?
Well, in terms of Myanmar, it has really been a difficult problem for the whole of ASEAN. For one thing, there are different conditions. For example, Myanmar, when there's fighting in Myanmar, the refugees cross over the 2,000-mile border that Thailand has with Myanmar, and they have that particular problem. Then there are Islamic countries in ASEAN who also have an interest because of the persecution that is being seen on the Muslim communities in Myanmar. The general approach until quite recently has been to write down the 5 points of consensus as we have for ASEAN. Everyone has signed off on it. In fact, even Myanmar has signed off on it. And continue to work with the leadership and also the opposition to that leadership, so as to have some kind of a balanced discussion. Unfortunately, we really have to admit that we have not made very much progress, even since the writing of the 5 points of consensus that ASEAN has agreed upon. So there has been a significant shift that really occurred in the last ASEAN under the chairmanship of Indonesia, where it became very clear, and upon the urging actually of Han Seng of Cambodia, and his argument went like this, and I said, and he says that when I became leader, nobody wanted to talk to me because I was not regarded or recognized as the leader, and he says, but who else will they talk to? And so now they spoke to me, and we have found a way to work. The different countries around have found a way to work. And this is the same situation as in Myanmar. If you insist on only handling these issues at a very high level, which is what the principle was in the beginning, that we only talk government to government, ASEAN to government. And unless there's progress made on that front, then there is no progress made. So the shift has come. And we now, under the informal auspices of ASEAN, each country is allowed to make approaches to the Myanmar leadership and the opposition, all the stakeholders in Myanmar, to try and find a solution to the problems that are being faced. And as in any conflict, the humanitarian side of it, the humanitarian cost has grown exponentially over the past 2-3 years, and so that just makes the situation even more urgent than it was before. So we have encouraged a slightly different approach. The Philippines is playing its part, and we have an interest in the Myanmar conflict for the simple reason that it affects the Philippines as well. And not in terms of actual fighting or refugees, but in terms of things like human trafficking. We have had to rescue many of our nationals from Myanmar and bring them back to the Philippines as they were human trafficked. They had been trafficked to work in usually illegal activities. So there is a great deal of impetus for ASEAN to solve this problem. But it is a very, very difficult problem. as it has involved other players, and it's not just the leadership in Myanmar. One of the most disturbing analyses that we have seen is that actually the military junta has lost support from its own military. And it only carries on with their militaristic and really terroristic activities by air power. And that air power has been provided not by Myanmar itself, but from foreign countries. And that is why I propose, I said, maybe it's time to talk to those who are supplying the arms, or those who are supplying the airplanes and the bombs, and to say that we have to find a way to bring a hiatus, at least a hiatus to this, to try and do something about the humanitarian problem. And then perhaps that will be a first step. And once we are discussing that, and once we are more active and allowed to operate more within the country, and to have more contact and more communication, perhaps that will lead to something else. And so that presently is the state of affairs when for ASEAN when it comes to Myanmar. When the chair comes to the Philippines, when the ASEAN chair comes to the Philippines, this is still what we intend to promote within our neighboring countries, and to find a way. I always quote. I'm a great believer that you should try everything everywhere all the time, simply because you cannot predict by any stretch of the imagination where it will succeed. And my best example is always, who would have thought that diplomatic relations between the US and China would come about because of table tennis? But it did. And so let's try everything. Let's talk to our friends, perhaps our adversaries, but try everything. And that is what we will try to promote. We are perfectly aware of the history of such negotiations. And for example, the peace treaty that was in fact signed in Oslo, that was unofficial between in the Middle East. And again, the China-US. And there are many examples of this. And that's why when the chair comes to the Philippines, we will once again remind our partners and say that we should not be too picky about how we get in touch or how we communicate with the military leadership in Myanmar, on how we negotiate and how we discuss with the other stakeholders. Because it's not just the political opposition. Unfortunately, both sides in this conflict, both the military junta and the opposition, the political opposition, have taken on a very, very hard line. And they will not speak to one another. And perhaps that's the role that ASEAN can play, is to come in between the two parts and hopefully bring them together, if not totally, but at least in certain ways. And start the process. There is no process as yet. Start the process, and hopefully it will bring a more equitable and peaceful situation in Myanmar, to the benefit of all of us in ASEAN and all of Asia, for that matter.
Well, Your Excellency, your insights, I must say, is very refreshing and encourages all of us to work harder to collaborate to this vision that you've laid out. And I truly think we must try everything. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me give a round of applause to Mr. President.
Maraming salamat.
And sir, before we conclude the speaker series, I understand you have a special presentation to the state of Hawaii.
Yes.
And if I can ask Lieutenant Governor Sylvia Luke to come up, as well as Congressman Case, Congresswoman Takuda, Senator Aquino, and Senator De La Cruz. Please come up and join.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
The 8 August 2023 wildfires affected various areas in Maui, particularly the historic town of Lahaina. In a spirit of unity and compassion, President Marcos instructed relevant agencies to collaborate with the state of Hawaii to assist grieving families and help affected communities rebuild. With this humble donation, the Philippines stands in solidarity with the state of Hawaii and continues to pray and hope for the full recovery of Maui as it embarks on rebuilding the island.
Madam Governor, thank you. It's just a simple donation to help all our friends. And we have already made efforts to provide support to our Philippine nationals in Maui. But again, in solidarity with the state of Hawaii, we thought we would. Yes. Very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Please be seated.
Please be seated.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's DKI Speaker Series. Sir, a sincere salamapo to you for your exceptional remarks. You've provided us much to think about today, and we're so grateful for your leadership. And we look forward, DKI APCSS, to come back out to the Philippines and join and work together with Indo-PACOM and the team of our folks in the United States to promote a more peaceful and prosperous region. For everyone that's here, especially those that are out in Hawaii, that normally don't talk about defense in the way we do at APCSS, you heard today from Your Excellency just how complex and the world is and so dynamic the changes are. You also heard that the United States remains steadfast in working with strong allies like the Philippines and other like-minded countries. Many consul generals represent those countries here today to ensure stability, security, and prosperity throughout the region, and I might say around the world. So as we conclude, as they say in the islands, malama pono, malama kekahi ike kahi, which is take care of yourself and take care of each other. And aloha. Aloha. Thank you, sir. Thank you.